Hey, you awesome folks! Thanks for taking this journey of discovery with your guide, Keith Haney. You're listening to the Becoming Bridge Builders podcast, your favorite podcast for everything from racial reconciliation to education innovation, justice reform, and leading change in the 21st century. This podcast is for people who love to be challenged with difficult topics, but want practical solutions to solve these challenging issues. Becoming Bridge Builders makes change possible. Each week on the podcast, Keith invites innovative thought leaders to share how they are building bridges in their area of expertise. You will hear breakthrough ideas and concepts that are changing the world. He's featuring guests who are best-selling authors, leaders at Microsoft, entrepreneurs, leading educators, professors, lawyers, and so many more. Listen in to learn how you can be the bridge to the change you are seeking.
My guest today is Dave Albin. Dave is the #1 firewalker instructor in America. Firewalking is a 1,000-year-old rite of passage ritual where you literally walk across hot burning coals. Having worked for Tony Robbins for 19 plus years and starting Firewalking Productions in 2014, Dave has firewalked hundreds of thousands of people. He and Tony Robbins set a world record in London in 2005, walking over 12,300 people. We welcome Dave to the podcast. Well, it's so good to have Dave on the podcast. How you doing today, Dave?
Hey, Keith. Thanks for having me, man.
It's a pleasure. Glad to talk to you. If people could know the green room conversation, it'd be...
Yeah, we did solve half the problems of the world, didn't we?
We did. Just if they could listen to, well, maybe we'll do bonus content on what we talked about before.
There we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
So I like to ask my guests this question: what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
This too shall pass.
Oh yeah, I love that one.
Right? I mean, I remember hearing one time that life's not as good as it seems. Life is not as bad as it seems. Reality's somewhere in the middle. Go find it. And, I learned that in AA. I've been there for 35 years, right? So, we say that a lot. This too shall pass, right? Everything's going bad. Things not going your way. This too shall pass, right? Everything going great. Everything's wonderful. You think you got the world by the you-know-what? Yeah. This too shall pass, right? So just be prepared for it. I think state management, it comes down to, you can see a man and you see how well they're doing under, things are going really good, right? Well, what you can really tell is, about a man when things are going really, really hard on him, and how they behave and how they react and how they lash out or they don't and how they recover and so on. So, yeah, I think state management was one of the greatest gifts that I ever really received, and I focused on it, and it really worked for me.
That's great. I used that same line when I was trying to get through seminary. So as I didn't do well on a certain Greek exam or something, it was like, oh, this too shall pass.
It's true, man, right?
That's right.
It happens. It's part of life. Yeah.
None of us get here by ourselves. There are always people in our lives who have come along at maybe just the right time or just inspired us. So this is a chance for you to kind of give a shout out to those people in your life. Who are some people that serve to inspire you or maybe be a motivator factor for you in your life?
Oh, my gosh. The list is long and distinguished. That's for sure. One of my best friends in life, I've known him since I was 5 years old. And if he hears this podcast, he's going to be so ticked off at me for mentioning his name on the air, but I'm going to do it anyway because that's what best friends do. My dear friend Carl Whitaker. Carl's been a great friend, and a couple of others, that I grew up with, Danny Shaw and Russ Pascoe, and there was a bunch of guys, and Carl though and I were really best friends, and he made a career out of firefighting. He started as a firefighter, as sergeant, and then he made lieutenant, and made captain, and made chief, and he was the head of the El Camino Firefighter Academy in Southern California. He was the president of the union. I mean, this dude did it all. He was a paramedic for 14 years. So he was one of those guys that, showed up the car accident and did his job, right? And he's a beautiful human, and he probably doesn't know it as much, but he's always, and it's interesting, he's a firefighter. I'm a firewalker, right? He's like, what's up with that, right? So, but and in AA, right? So I'm out there saving lives, or at least trying to, helping people achieve sobriety, and he's out saving people, pulling them out of cars and that kind of thing. So we've gone through life together, and we talk on a regular basis. And yeah, my dear friend Carl Whitaker has been a huge influence in my life.
That's so neat. I love that.
Yeah.
Tell us about your journey and the lessons you learned along the way.
Whew. Okay, well, let's get into it. Well, 2 months, what happened, Keith, is 2 months before I was born, my biological father, we don't really know what happened to him. We just know that he injured his head. And to save his life, they put a plate in his head. And there was a lot of pain associated with that plate. And he used to complain to my mom all the time how painful it was. Well, 2 months before I'm born, he turned to mom and said, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. We never saw or heard from him again. So we don't know, but we kind of assuming that because of the pain and him never showing up again, that he might have taken his own life. So when I was born to a single mom. She already had 2 boys. She was living with my grandmother, her mother, in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hollywood, California. We had another cousin that was living with us. So there was a whole bunch of us and a whole bunch of mouths to feed. Now, my mom, my biological mother, came from the greatest generation that's ever walked the face of this planet. And I think if any of us that had parents who grew up during the Great Depression and fought World War II know what I'm talking about, right? Because the women of that era were some of the most, they were incredible. They had to get it done, right? Because when the men were over in Europe fighting the Nazis and the rest of the men were over in the Pacific fighting the Japanese, guess what the women were doing? Everything.
Yeah.
They literally did everything. They built Jeeps. They built tanks. My mom, my biological mother, was known as Rosie the Riveter. She was out on the wing of an airplane working for McDonnell Douglas, driving in rivets, right? She was building airplanes. So they knew hard work. They knew how to fix things. You made it through the Depression, and she was, there was a family of 8 kids in that family. So sure enough, what happened was that she was working as a server at the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood, and she worked her butt off, but it just wasn't enough. And one day she said, she couldn't feed all of us. And so she went to her older sister, Pat, my aunt, and she said, hey, will you adopt David? And Pat and Bob Albin, my aunt and uncle, said, absolutely. So they took me from Hollywood to Long Beach, and my life changed that quick. I went, into this beautiful home in Long Beach, California. My dad was career military. He was an officer. He was highly decorated. He had a good job. There was money. There was food on the table all the time. There was no scarcity. I was living a nice life. And then something happened. A few years later, remember, they adopted me when I was 5. When I was 11, they set me down the first day of summer and said, hey, David, we need to tell you something. First day of summer, 1964, they set me down, and my mom with tears in her eyes, and I refer to her as mom. She's my stepmom, right? Or not, excuse me, not my stepmom, but she's my adopted mom, right? She's really my aunt, but I didn't know her as anything other than mom.
Right.
And she put her hand on my hand, and with tears in her eyes, she said, David, what we need to tell you is we're not your parents. What? What does that mean? What do you mean you're not my parents? Of course you're my parents, right? It's like going outside and look at the sky blue, right? You go, yeah, the sky's not blue. Well, it looks pretty blue to me, Right. And you look like my parents to me. And then shortly after that, Keith, they both started drinking. And that's when things got ugly real fast. Made a hard right turn in my life. And then one day they went to the grocery store. Both of them went together. They did that back in the 60s, by the way. They'd leave kids home. There was no problem with that, right? You just call the neighbor across the street and say, hey, Joanne, Bob and I are going to the store. David's at home. If he needs anything, can he come knock on the door? Yeah, sure. Tell him to come over now. Well, I'll fix him a fried bologna sandwich, right? And so when they left, I knew where the booze was. They were hiding it in plain sight. And I went over and I opened the cabinet and I pulled it out. It was a half gallon of brandy. And I took a coffee cup, Keith. I filled it halfway and boom, down it went at 11 years old. Well, I never had a chance. I truly believe I was an alcoholic right on the spot because I started acting out and thinking alcoholically. And so things went downhill from there. By the time I was a junior in high school, they brought me into the principal's office one day and said, "Albin, you're out. We're done with you, pal. You're a danger to the school." So they got rid of me, which was okay. I was good with it. Fine, kick me out. I didn't want to go to school anyway. I was living off that Paul Simon song that was back in those days, and the lyrics were, "When I think back to all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all." Right? And so I didn't care. I didn't think there was anything they were going to teach me that was going to help me make a living in life, because I already had an entrepreneurial spirit. When I was growing up, my mom grew beautiful flowers in the backyard. Well, she would take them and cut them at an angle, right? Not at the bottom, but at an angle, and open up the surface area, right, of the flower. And then she'd arrange them. She had a beautiful eye for color. She put a rubber band around them. She put them in a bucket. She'd fill it with water. Then she'd put about a half a bottle of 7-Up in the water. And what that did, I don't know the science behind it. All I know is my flowers would outlast the florist. They would literally last 2 weeks. And I go out on the street corner and sell them. And then I got a paper route at a young age, 11, 12 years old. Well, when you're a paper boy, you're an entrepreneur. You own your own business. You work 7 days a week, right? Papers come out 7 days a week. You had to go. You had to ride your bicycle. You picked up your papers. You folded them. You put them in your saddlebags. You loaded it on your bicycle. And then you went and you delivered the papers. And you had to go collect the money. You had to turn it into your den mother. I mean, it was a full-blown entrepreneurial job. And I lived across the street from a golf course. Well, love that, because here's what I learned about golfers. They suck. Right? Because I'd ride my bicycle around the perimeter, and guess what I'd find? Lots of them, little white things, little round white things. Well, I'd take them home. I'd clean them up. I'd go back to the golf course, and the boxes that the golf course balls came in, they'd throw them out. Well, I'd take them. And then I'd take my balls and I'd line them up. I'd put the Titleist, the Max Flies, the Dunlops, the Wilsons. I'd go back into the parking lot, and I'd sell the golfers back the golf balls that they hit over the fence. Right? So here at a young age, here's what I learned. There's money out there. Go find it. Go get it. Go hustle. And I've been kind of had that mindset ever since, Keith. So at the same time, when I got kicked out of high school, I went and got a really good job in a grocery store, the biggest grocery store in the state of California at that time. And I joined the Retail Clerks Union, who was they were a division, if you will, of the Teamsters, of all the truckers. So within a short amount of time, I was making $8 an hour. And that's 1972, all right? So I'm making a fortune. That's like $50 an hour now. I went out and bought a new Mach 1 Mustang, and, I moved out. I had a really nice apartment in Belmont Shore, California. I mean, and I had a pretty expensive habit, if you will. So making good money was critical, right? Because I was feeding my addiction. By that time, I was doing, obviously, alcohol, but I was getting into cocaine and heroin and speed and you name it. I was doing it. If it changed the way I felt, I was addicted to it. Heck, I even had a problem with chocolate chip cookies, right? And so that went along. I got married to a girl that was kind of like my childhood sweetheart. That lasted about 3 weeks. Then I met a girl who got me out of California in 1983, moved me to the East Coast. And, she looked at me one day and said, "David, I love you, but I can't deal with your drug and alcohol, tantrums and violence and so on." So bless her heart, she did the right thing and kicked me to the curb. Then I met a bartender who had 3 kids, and I married her. And I thought, this will do it. She has 3 kids. Maybe I'll calm down. Yeah, I calmed down for about 3 weeks, maybe. And then one day, on June 8, 1988, that was the day. I'm living in the basement. The rest of the family's living upstairs or staying away from me. And when I woke up that morning, I said, "That's it. We're done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm in so much physical and emotional and spiritual pain. The only idea that was floating around in my head is put a bullet in your head. End it." And so there I am. I've got my pistol out. I'm loading it. I'm putting it in my mouth, and it dawns on me, David, if you pull that trigger, guess what? Yeah, maybe your problems are over, but your kids, these stepkids that you made a commitment to raise, their problems are just starting. You're going to ruin their life. You can't do that. Figure out another way, pal. And so I'm having this dialogue with myself. And in that moment of compassion, I stopped. And obviously, I made another choice. And that choice was, the next thing I know, I've got a thought in my head, call Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, you know what, Keith? What's interesting about that thought is I didn't know who AA was.
Right.
I had no references. I didn't know anybody that was in AA. I had never been to AA. And yet there was a thought. And I did. I called AA. And I got this wonderful woman on the phone. And over the years, I've nicknamed her Madge. And the reason I nicknamed her Madge is because she talked like this. She was probably smoking 2 packs of Pall Mall Pilsners a day, and she just had that raspy voice. Well, she was a wonderful human being. Here's what I can tell you, man. She was the gatekeeper, right? It's her job to listen to you, and then if she thinks it's warranted, then she'll call somebody to come pick you up. And she did that. And the next thing I know, I'm on my way to my first AA meeting, which was on June 8th, 1988. There I am. I go to my first AA meeting, and that's all it took. Then I went to a meeting the next day, and then next thing I know, I had a week of sobriety, and then I had a month. And once I got to a month, they gave me one of these, and it said 30 days, 1 month of continuous sobriety. And then I got one for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 1 year. And this last June 8th here this year, I just celebrated 35 years of continuous sobriety. Now, here's what happened along the way with that. Because I've got insomnia during my recovery in the first year, and I'm up late at night all the time, right? My sleep patterns were all over the place. I'm up late and I'm watching an infomercial. And there he is, Mr. Enthusiasm, a young, vibrant, Tony Robbins is selling a program through Gunther Ranker Corporation, and it's called Personal Power. And it's a 30-day program for total success, Tony called it. So there I am watching that infomercial, and I didn't like Tony at all when I first saw him. I thought he was a pompous. I thought he was a jerk. He's all motivated. Well, I'm not motivated. I'm miserable.
Right.
But I'm watching him. I'm listening to him, right? And he said 2 things that got me. The first thing he said, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. And I remember thinking, whoa, okay, that makes sense to me, because that's what I did when I was using drugs and alcohol. I was either trying to get some pleasure or I was running from pain, one or the other, right? And then the other thing he said to me that really got me, was he said the driving force in our life, the reason how we make decisions, if you will, is we make them out of inspiration or desperation. I thought, whoa, okay. Well, I'm pretty desperate. Maybe I should listen to this guy. So I did. I bought his program. And they sent it to me, and it came in this big old box, right? And it came on these little white things called cassette tapes.
I remember.
Right. Some of your listeners are gonna, what's that, right?
Right.
Well, they're in the Smithsonian. They're right next to reel and 8-track tapes, right? And so I plugged them in. I did what the man taught me to do, and it worked. Well, my buddy was watching me when I was doing all this, and he's like, hey man, what's going on with you? Why are you so motivated? You're all chippy and, this and that. You seem encouraging, and you're making a lot of changes in your life. You started a new business. You're losing weight. You're working out. What the heck? I said, well, I've been listening to this guy named Tony Robbins. And he goes, I know who Tony Robbins is. I got his book, but I never read it. I said, well, how often does that show up in your life, man? I said, look, I've got his program. It's on cassette tapes. It's 30 days. I'll loan it to you, but you got to promise me you'll go through it. He goes, I promise. Done. So I loaned it to him. Well, this was all going down, by the way, in 1988, 1989. 7 years later, 1995, my phone rings. It's Dan. He's like, hey, man, did you know that Tony Robbins is coming to town live? And I'm going, no, I had no idea. He goes, dude, come on. You got to go with me. And I said, well, when is it? And I said, okay, I can go. He goes, great. That's all I needed to hear. I'll call you back. I'll make the arrangements. Okay, got it. He calls me back an hour later, Keith. He goes, done. We pick up the tickets at will call. Here's what they told us to do. Number 1, bring a good attitude. Okay. Be ready to play full out. Okay. How much was the ticket? $695. What? $695 in 1995? What's that worth today? Like 1.3 million or some crazy. I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then he said, bring snacks and hydrate, drink a lot of water. And as he's getting ready to get off the phone, I go, okay, great. I'll see you then. He goes, oh, wait, I forgot to tell you something really important. What's that? Well, we're going to be doing a fire walk. I'm like, what? I'm not saying anything, but I'm going, oh, no, that's a hard no for me. I'm not doing any fire walk. Now, I don't even know what a fire walk is. I have no references for that. But fire and walk going together at the same time didn't sound like anything I was interested in.
Yeah, it didn't sound like
fun. So I just didn't sound like fun. No. So I'm blowing him off, right? Yeah, no problem. We'll see you, Dan. Yeah, fire walk. Great. Awesome. Well, we get to the event, right? Well, actually, yeah, the big day comes and we get to the event. Tony takes the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. And the next thing I know, Keith, it's after midnight. I've been in a room with Tony Robbins for 10 hours. That when they said bring snacks, they said you're going to spend a lot of time in the room. Yeah, if you don't bring snacks, you'll starve to death. And so next thing I know, it's after midnight. Tony goes, take your shoes off. And I'm like, oh, no. I see where you're going with that one, pal. I'm not falling for that. Well, I got a problem. I'm in a room with 3,500 people. Guess what they're doing? Yeah, you guessed it. They're taking their shoes off.
You're
so
right.
Now I've got a dilemma. What am I going to do? Because if I don't take my shoes off, everybody else is taking their shoes off, then they're going to know. Hey, look at the guy over there. Didn't take his shoes off, coward, right? So I'm negotiating with myself. I'm like, okay, don't worry about it. Take your shoes off. You don't have to do it. When you get out there, just go hide in the back. You'll be fine. So it gets worse. Because when Tony's got you going out there, guess what he gets everybody to start doing? Clapping and chanting. And so everybody's walking out there going, yes, yes, yes. And I'm walking out there going, no, ain't going to happen. It gets worse, Keith. Then you get out there, this big parking lot, right, where you're going to firewalk 3,500 people. He's got African drummers. So now, you get out there and you can feel the vibration, right? And here it's like dun, 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 dun. Yes, yes. I mean, it's a dog and pony show like you've never seen in your life. And over in the corner, he's got this giant fire. It's huge. It's every bit of 35 feet wide. It's 70 feet long. And it's been burning all day, probably 10, 12 hours. And then what happens at the end of the night, it renders. So you got this big giant pile of blue coals. It's beautiful. And so how do you walk 3,500 people? Well, you take a whole bunch of wheelbarrows and you take them over to that pit. You load the wheelbarrows with the coals. Then you bring a wheelbarrow back and you lay 2 lanes of sod on each side of it. Sod meaning grass. They call it a fire lane. Fire lane's 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. Then they just take a flathead shovel, man, and they sprinkle those coals on top of that grass, and that's what you walk on. Well, I'm having none of it. I'm in the back, hiding out in the back, of course. Well, Tony Robbins knows, and if you research firewalking, it's been around 1,000 years. Cultures all around the world have used it for a variety of reasons, mostly rite of passage, graduations, things of this nature. But if you look at the Phoenicians, the people of India, the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, the Indo-Europeans, the people of Portugal, the Spaniards, the Native American Indians, they've all been using firewalking. It's not something new in the world by any means. And Tony knows that this is literally the reason he chose it. He knows it's literally one of the most life-changing experiences any human will go through. And so he doesn't want you to miss it. And he also knows there's people like me hiding in the back. So what's he do?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
And now a word from one of our sponsors, For Freedom Mobile. If you're using AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, then you're being tracked. Mobile providers collect your location, communications, internet activity, even your financial transaction. They sell that data to anyone willing to pay for it and provide it to the government without a warrant. Switch to For Freedom Mobile, and you won't ever have to worry about big tech or Big Brother tracking you through your mobile phone again. For Freedom Mobile provides secure, unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data for just $29.99 a month, and it includes free internet roaming in over 200 countries. Sign up for the service by visiting forfreedommobile.com and using the promo code BRIDGEBUILDERS to get your first month for only $9.99. See forfreedommobile.com for details, just like the number 4, freedommobile.com.
He trains people to come find you. I'm back there minding my own business, thinking I got it figured out, right? Next thing I know, here comes this guy, comes out of nowhere, makes eye contact with me, and now he won't take his eyes off me. And I'm pretty sure Robbins trained him to do that, right? And this guy gets, I don't know, maybe 15 feet, 20 feet from me, and he's looking at me really funny, like a dog that hears a funny noise, right? And he's looking at me and he goes, "Hey, man, are you okay?" And when we're not okay, what do? We lie about it. "Oh, I'm fine. I'm good. Nothing to see here, pal. Move along," right? And so the guy goes, "Hey, man, are you going to walk tonight?" And I'm thinking to myself, "What? You think I'm hiding in the back, you idiot?" "No, of course I'm not." And I told him, "No, absolutely not. I'm not walking tonight." And he goes, "Hey, man, that's cool." He goes, "No problem. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do." And I thought, okay, this guy's going to get me out of here. Well, guess what, Keith? Here's a stranger. By the way, I don't know who this guy is to this day. I wish I did, because he changed my entire life. And he got me in a position to change a lot of other people's lives, hundreds of thousands of them. In fact, without this guy, I'm not on your podcast here today, Keith, right?
Right.
And the question he asked me was, "Well, wouldn't you at least like to watch?" And I thought, yeah, let's do that. This will be entertaining. Let's go watch these people burn their feet off. And he said, "Hey, man, you can't see anything from back here." And I can't. I got 3,500 people standing in front of me. I can't see anything. I can hear them. They're chanting yes, clapping their hands. The drums are going. And people are already walking, and they're in the celebration end, and they're screaming like crazy, like little kids at, Christmas. They're jumping up and they're going nuts, right? I can hear it, but I can't see anything. And he said, "Well, just get in line, and eventually you'll get up there. You'll be able to see it." Okay. I took the bait, and I got in line, and I'm just kind of trudging along. And the next thing I know, this guy comes up to me, and he whispers in my ear, and he said, "He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go." And pew, this guy just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, what was that? What do you mean? He knows when I'm ready. So just really bizarre, right? Well, I get to a point, and again, I can't see in front of me, but I get to a point where I can see at an angle, and they're doing it. They're walking, man. Every race, every creed, every color, and now I'm mesmerized. Can't take my eyes off them. It's blowing my mind. It's kind of like a car accident, right? You tell yourself you're not going to look at it, but you stare at it anyway. Well, it's kind of like that. And so now I'm mesmerized, and the next thing I know, boom, guess where I am? Yeah, I'm at the front of the line. And now I'm looking down at that fire lane, right? It's 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. The coals are on top. You can see them. They're glowing bright red. There's no question that they're hot. And there's a wheelbarrow there anyway, and you can feel the heat coming off. And now I'm staring into the abyss. I'm pretty sure my heart is going to jump out of my chest any moment. Well, there's a trainer standing there. And all of a sudden the trainer goes, "Eyes up." Kind of scolds me, right? I bring my eyes up. Well, I'm in a room with Tony for 10 hours. Guess what he teaches you to do? Keep your eyes up. Don't stare at what you fear. Look to the end. Look to the celebration end. That's where the reward is. So now my eyes are up, and he said, "Squeeze your fist and say yes." And I went, "Yes." And he went, "Stronger." And I went, "Yes." Well, he could tell. He's a trainer. He knew I was leaving a lot on the table. He knew I wasn't in a peak state. So he screamed at me again, "Stronger." I threw my hands in the air, and I said yes as loud as I could. And the trainer goes, "Go, go, go." I took off. Remember the guy, right? He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. Well, I did. And so here's the first thing I learned about firewalking. When you take the first step, you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I promise you, you will not stop on that fire lane and stand on those hot coals. Well, they position 2 people at the end of the fire lane that lock arms, and they catch you. And they're like, "Stop, wipe your feet and celebrate." And I'm wiping my feet, and I'm celebrating. People are screaming and yelling. It's euphoric, man. There's nothing like it on earth. And it dawns on me, I burnt myself really bad. And I look at my foot and it's dirty, but there's no burns. Oh, it's my other foot. I look at it. Yeah, it's really dirty too, but there's no burns. And now here's what I'm trying to figure out. I just walked on coals that were 1,000 degrees and I have no clue how I did it. None. Zero. You know what I mean? You ever done something? I think we all have, right? You do something really cool, really awesome, but you don't really know how you did it, but you take credit for it, right? I'm like, yep, that was this guy. I did that, right? And so it was a beautiful moment. In fact, I'm like, all right, where's the bus? Let's go climb Mount Everest. I mean, I'm ready to go. And that was because when you do that, you go from, being scared to death to conquering your fear in 4 seconds. And so, your self-worth, your self-confidence, your self-belief, everything kind of rises. Your vibration rises, and you do it collectively. All of us, 3,500 people, are now really, really high on life, if you will. Super confident. Well, here's where it gets interesting. The next day, this event's 4 days. That was day 1, the night thereof. And now we're on day 2. So now we're all standing in the foyer getting ready to go into the venue. And to this day, Keith, I've never seen anything like it. Ever. People were getting along humanistically unlike anything I'd ever seen. They were laughing, they were crying, they were hugging, and I mean really hugging, really connecting. They were talking about the firewalk, they were talking about their fears. They were just going on and on and on. And I'm going, really? I mean, did we drink the Kool-Aid last night? Is that what happened? Sure did. And that's why Tony uses it, because he knows now he's got leverage going into day 2. Because if you can firewalk successfully and not hurt yourself or burn yourself, the question comes up, what else can I do? So that's why he uses it. That's why, he's got you. Well, later in the event, I met one of Tony's trainers, a guy by the name of Ted Macy. Super guy, loved Ted to death, him and his wife, Mary. And I'm talking to him. And I'm like, dude, this must be awesome that you get to come play and be in this environment on a regular basis and around all this positivity. And he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, I get to do this several times a year. And he goes, as a matter of fact, he said, you see all those people standing over there with those black shirts with the pink writing on the back? Yeah. He goes, guess what, man? They're volunteers. They're just like you. They came, did a firewalk, and said, I want to come back and be involved. So here's what you can do. Go, when you get home, call Robbins Research and ask them to send you a volunteer crew application. I did. And I filled it out. I sent it back. And about 9 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. And it said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins companies. Well, there you have it. I'm in the door. And so that was all going down in 95. Well, I crewed like 5 or 6 times. Well, the problem with that is it's costing me $1,500, $2,000 every time I go, right? You got to pay for your airfare. You got to pay your hotel. You got to pay all your expenses, your travel. And my wife is like this. Like, no, I don't. Who's this Tony Robbins guy? Because I'm spending $2,000, $1,500 every time I go, and she doesn't know anything about Tony. She doesn't know I drank the Kool-Aid, right? So bless her heart, she's complaining, and rightfully so. Well, next thing I know, I'm getting offered a subcontracting position. So they hired me to help because they had a security and a military background. So they brought me in to help take care of Tony's celebrities. So now they're paying my way. They're paying my hotel. They're paying a per diem so I can pay my food, my expenses. So I'm not coming out of pocket. And they pay a little salary, a couple $100. It was no big deal. But at least I'm in the black and I'm not in the red every time I go. But they did another smart thing. They gave me a free ticket. And so I got to bring my wife.
Oh, wow.
And she went. And when she graduated, I'll never forget that night, man. We were walking on the beach and we're walking and she goes, okay, I get it. I drank the Kool-Aid. This guy's pretty awesome. Go, man. Whatever you want to do. You want to run with this guy, run with this guy. Well, shortly after that, a couple years later, I'd been on the fire team as well because I lived on a farm. So I knew how to use tools and I knew how to use a log splitter and a hatchet, this kind of stuff. So now I'm doing fire team and I'm doing security. And then in 2003, my life forever changed. Tony offered me the fire captain position. And what that meant was I took over all of his firewalks globally. And there was a little bit of talks in the beginning because I homeschooled my kids and I didn't really want to do that. And he stepped right up, and Robbins Research paid for my family to travel with me. So my wife and my kids got to go on the road with Tony Robbins all over the world. That was in 2003. 2005 comes along. We go to London, to the Docklands, to the Excel Center, and we set the world record. That's where we firewalked 12,300 people. Now, Keith, I say world record. I want to disclose to all your audience that Guinness Book of World Records was not there. However, there's never been a firewalk with 12,300 people or anywhere close to that. The only firewalk that ever come anywhere close to that's another Tony Robbins seminar, whether it was 10,000 people or 9,000 people, right? So that happened in 2005. And to kind of move this forward to get to where we are now, in 2014, I'm driving down the road, my phone rings, and it's Google. You know, the little company out of San Francisco?
Yeah.
Yeah. Most people know Google. And they're like, hey, are you the Dave Albin that does the firewalks for Tony Robbins? Yeah. What's up? Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, I'd like to talk to you about hiring you. Okay. Well, homeboy's a free agent. What you got? Right? And they're like, well, we have 148 executives that are going to graduate on such and such a date, and we want to anchor it in with a life-changing experience. Interesting. So any business owners out there, what did Google know that you don't? They knew. They know. They know that what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. So you've got a whole bunch of people together. They're going to graduate together and create this unbelievable experience, and it'll anchor it in forever. So as we got to talking, they wanted to do the event during the day. And I go, I can't do a firewalk during the day. That's a safety issue. I won't do it. I got to be able to see the color of those coals. And I said, but I tell you what we could do. If you want to do it in the day, we could do a glass walk. They're like, a glass walk? You mean like walking on broken glass? Yep. They go, ooh, tell us about that. So there I am, man. I'm in Google 2014, did my first gig with them. Went back the following year. In fact, it was one of the Google executives that pulled me aside and said, look, Dave, just to let you know, you're at the top of your game. The marketplace is so primed for you. This is exactly what corporate America needs. And they want it. And you're the guy to facilitate it. So you may want to think about starting your own business. It's up to you. I mean, I know you love Tony and blah, 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 but at the end of the day, there's an incredible marketplace. Well, Google's telling me to start my own business. And there's a marketplace for these types of life-changing paradigm shift experiences. Corporations are tired of going golfing. They're tired of scavenger hunts. You know, they're tired of playing blackjack. You know, they need something that's going to create change, lasting change. Well, and I just happen to be the guy that knows how to do that. So, So Firewalk Productions was born in 2014, and no pun intended, but we've been going hot and heavy ever since.
Well, that's an amazing story. I want to go back a little bit, because as I listen to your story, I can see the origins of where the pain started with your father, your biological father, and the pain he had and how that was passed down to you. What I find interesting is how you almost got probably to the same place he probably got to, but something in your life changed where you took a different path. So for the people who are listening, who may be in that place that you were at, what words do you have for those people who are in that point where they don't see any hope and all they see is pain?
Don't fall into the trap. You're not here by accident. I mean, but I thought, I'm thinking, my life doesn't mean anything. I'm going through all that nonsense in my head, and none of it's true. None of it. It's all a lie. And I think that's the biggest part, is we lie to ourselves, right? That we're not important. There's no value. Nobody loves me. Nobody likes me. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I mean, we go through all of that, right? Why don't people get what they want in life, Keith? Well, it's pretty simple. There's a story we tell ourselves why we can't have it. I'm too young. I'm too old. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the education. I don't have the background. I'm not lucky enough. Nonsense. It's not true. None of it's true. And you know what? Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, pretty much laid it out for us. And if you haven't read the book, I encourage you to read it. It's not an easy book to read. I'm going to warn you. Viktor Frankl was in Auschwitz. They murdered his family right in front of him. And they took, in Auschwitz, as you were going to one of the chambers, they take everything from you. You're naked. They don't feed you. You have to stand outside in the cold. They take everything from you, your dignity, all of it. But here's what Viktor Frankl figured out. What he figured out was, there's one thing you can't take from me, and that's my attitude. I have to give it up. I have to relinquish that, and I'm not doing it. And so what did he do? He created purpose, because you're losing that too. It's like, I'm moving my company in the direction of helping veterans and first responders and kids that are bullied and single mothers. And I'll talk about that in a second. So he got that figured out, because he said, someone's got to get out of here, and someone has to tell this story. And that's exactly what he did. And he lived, and he got out, and he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. So the bottom line is, just don't give it up. There's a purpose for your life. I guarantee you. All you got to do is go find it. I mean, I was as bad as it gets. I was grossly addicted to heroin, cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes, all of it. And boom, one day I realized that I didn't have to live my life that way anymore, because I had a whole bunch of men and women at Alcoholics Anonymous who were going to show me the way. And they did. And then again, I saw an infomercial, and I started, looking into taking my life to another level. And when you open yourself up like that, things come your way. It's like my biological father. You mentioned that part. Is that, what I chose about my dad? I made a really smart decision. I'm going to pat myself on the back. And I chose gratitude. I chose gratitude. I chose to love him. I chose to respect him. I chose to honor him. And I chose to be grateful for him. I don't know what he was going through in that moment. He took his own life because he was in a lot of pain. Okay, I get that. I was in a lot of emotional pain. He was in a lot of physical and emotional pain. So, he did what he had to do, and I don't hold that against him. And I chose gratitude. And that's made a big difference in my life. A couple of years ago, I was having dinner with my son, and we're over here, and I live close to Boone, North Carolina. And so we were over there at Mike's Seafood Restaurant. We go over there once in a while, and we like it. And when I go into restaurants, I take the servers and I treat them like gold. My mom was a server in a hotel, right? So she taught me, look, when you go in a restaurant, you see people that are taking care of you, you treat them with respect. And, she beat that into my head. So I always do. I always connect with them. I tell them a story about my mom, and they love it, right? Because they're doing what my mom did. So there's instant rapport. And I tip really well and all that. And so we're having a really good time. And all of a sudden I'm eating, right? And I look up and I look back, and all of a sudden it dawns on me that I'm having dinner with my dad's grandson. And I could see my dad in my son's eyes. And I don't think I would have ever had that moment in my life had I not chose gratitude about my biological father. And so that, again, was just a good decision to make. And, peer group, hang around with drug addicts, you'll become a drug addict, right?
Right.
I can tell you that right now. Hang around with positive people that encourage you and inspire you and lift you up. And I know you know that within your ministry, right? So That's what happens. So, yeah, man, it was just one of those things, and made a lot of bad choices, but I made a couple of good ones. No. And AA helped clean up all the wreckage of the past. The personal development industry told me what I was capable of, or what I could do if I put my mind to it and go out and establish my legacy and my future.
I love it. You started to talk about the shift you're making in your company right now. So what are you excited about in this season of your business journey?
Well, because of podcasting, I did a podcast a few months ago, and I was interviewed by Natalia Earl. And after the podcast, we're talking, and she started asking some questions. She said, have you ever done a firewalk for veterans? And I said, not specifically. I mean, have veterans been part of our firewalks? I've firewalked to 500,000 people. So I'm sure there's lots of vets in there. I'm a vet. The dad that raised me was a vet, highly decorated, World War II. So, yeah, I'm familiar with veterans. But I've never done one specifically. And she said, well, what do you charge? And I said, well, I charge $189 a person with a 100-person minimum plus the expenses. And I said, why? She goes, well, we have 300 Marines. And I said, okay, well, let's do it. She goes, Dave, we can't afford you. There's just no way. I said, well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Tell you what I'll do. I'll do it pro bono. You won't have to pay me, but you are going to have to pay for my team. I'm not going to ask my team to travel there and do all that for free. I can't do that. They take off time from work. They have families. They have expenses. So if you take care of my team and you pay for all the expenses and you pay my travel so I get down there. So I just don't want to go into the red every time you guys ask me to do this, right? But if you'll cover my expenses and feed me and all that, I'll come and do it. So as we started working towards that, after I told them I would do it, that night, I woke up in the middle of the night, Keith, and here's what the thought was. I'm going to create what's called the Do No Harm Firewalk for veterans and first responders. And so what I thought to do was, veterans are very honorable people. So I said, well, but they're also committing suicide 22 a day, right? And that's if they leave a note. Right. And what I found out was the number's closer to 40 men and women who have served our country are committing suicide right now. Today, 40 will take their lives. And the reason it's 40 is because they don't all leave a note. And I said, Dave, you've been doing this for 3 decades. That's where you're going. That's your legacy. Go save their lives. And so I called it the Do No Harm Firewalk. Well, what I'm going to do is, and we just scheduled our first one. We just scheduled the first one for August 13th in Modesto, California. So here's what we're going to have them do. They're all vets. I'm going to have them stand up and take an oath. They're going to raise their hand, and they're going to promise to do no harm. Because I'm going to tell them, look, I'm going to take you out here into the parking lot, and you're going to participate in a rite of passage experience that's been around for over 1,000 years on this planet. And for you to participate, you have to promise to do no harm. So there's step one. I got them, right? Then here's what I did. I brought the board break experience into the firewalk experience, right? Board breaking. Any martial arts person knows what I'm talking about, right?
Sure.
Any dojo, if you join martial arts and you go from a white belt to a yellow belt or any belt graduation, you break a board with your hand or your elbow or your knee or your foot, whatever. And so I went, tell you what we'll do. Let's take that board break, and I'm going to have them write something on front of the board they want to move towards. I'm going to have them write something on back of the board that they need to move away from. They need to stop doing. And then I'm going to invite them to write anybody's name on that board that they're in conflict with. In other words, if forgiveness or reconciliation is part of that relationship, put their name on the board. It ends tonight. Stop carrying around a resentment about another human being on this planet. It clouds your thinking about what you should be doing out there in the world. Then here's where it really gets interesting. I have them write anybody's name on the board that they've lost. So that creates the rite of passage. Could be a relative, could be a mentor, could be one of their buddies they lost when they were, deployed. And there could be more than one. Write their name on the board. So once they do, I take them through that process. Then we take them outside. We have board break stations, and they're all going to break their board. Then I'm going to walk them in a circle, counterclockwise. There's a reason for that I explained during the event. And then they do their firewalk. And then after they do their firewalk, they throw their board into the fire. And then I do one more thing. I do what's called, I have a proprietary heart hug. And what that is that normally when we hug this way, right? Well, I have them hug this way because then, right, our hearts are on top of each other. I have them close their eyes and they take 3 deep diaphragmatic breaths. And here's the magic that happens. On that second breath, because I'm filling their lungs, their diaphragm, right? I'm getting them really to take deep breaths because I want a lot of oxygen in the body. And when they come in or come out of that second breath, guess what happens? Their hearts calibrate. They start beating at the same time. So I'll do that 5, 6 times. It just depends on the group and the size. And the next thing you know, you've got all of them and their hearts start beating together. Now, here's what I'm doing for the vets, right? They're going to get one of these. It's a necklace they can wear. We're going to have some medallions made that they can carry in their pocket. The Do No Harm Firewalk. We take coals. These are the actual coals. So we'll say on here, it'll say, the Do No Harm Firewalk 2024. Right. So there the coals are. Now, one of my companies that I do business with, and I love these guys, is the Zippo lighter company, right? And so that's the lighter they made for me.
Oh, wow.
Well, I went to Zippo a few weeks ago and I said, hey guys, here's what I'm doing. It's the Do No Harm Firewalk. And I said, would you guys like to get involved? And they said, absolutely, we'd like to get involved. So here's what they did. I sat down with the design team, and they're going to take a 1941 replica of the lighter they made during World War II. They're going to powder coat it in black, and then they're going to laser Do No Harm on that lighter. And they are going to be beautiful. And then I've got a couple of other companies that I'm reaching out to. In fact, I have a conference call today at 1:00 with MIT 45, fifth fastest growing company in the state of Utah. They brought Kratom into America. And then I got a hold of the Black Rifle Coffee Company. They just happen to be the sixth fastest growing company in the state of Utah. So basically what I'm doing, I'm saying, all right, corporate America, you want to save some lives? You want to get your brand on the right side of a very powerful movement in saving lives for first responders and vets and kids that are being bullied and single moms? Get a hold of me. We'd love to have you.
I love that. That's an inspiring story. I hope that, people hear that and can. So if people want to, participate or even donate to this, how can they do that?
Just go to our website for now. We're going to make some changes as this thing develops, but then get a hold of me now. No big deal. And we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. All they have to do is just go to our website, which is firewalkadventures.com. So that's with an S, one word, firewalkadventures.com. All my information's there. My calendar, lots of information about all the experiences that we do, lots of companies that have hired me. Because in 2014, when I started after Google, I failed to mention this. Right after that, next thing I know, I was at NASA. Then I went to Notre Dame. Then I went to Virginia Tech. Then we went to Remax, the real estate company. Then we went to the EO organization, the Entrepreneurs Organization. Incredible group of men and women there. We went to Microsoft. We went to Heineken, YMCA. I started getting calls from, high schools. And so, yeah, we've been going at it ever since.
Great stuff. I'd like to ask my guests this question as we kind of wrap this up. It's been a phenomenal conversation. You kind of mentioned it, but I want to kind of give you a chance to kind of crystallize that for us. What do you want your legacy to be?
Well, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm doing these podcasts. I just, when I started podcasting, my goal was to do 100 podcasts in 1 year. And I just beat that. I just hit, and I did that in 7 months. I've got my kids and I've got my grandkids, and really it comes down to legacy. The bottom line right now, I know my calling now. I was out in the corporate world, and, we did really well out there. And I worked for Tony Robbins for just shy of 20 years. I did work for T. Harv Eker. I've done work for some incredible corporations and businesses and people and all of that. But now once you get that idea that everything that I've ever learned in my life, I can now use to save people's lives, especially veterans and first responders and kids that have been bullied. I mean, that's it. I'm in. So that's where my focus is going, because I know you've probably heard this before. Where intention goes, energy flows. And so, this is my calling. Everything in my life that I've ever done has brought me to this moment. And so, so as long as I can, I've got air in my lungs, I'm gonna save as many men and women's lives that are veterans and first responders that I possibly can.
What an awesome vision. Dave, where can people, one more time, give us your website, and how can they find you on social media?
Firewalkadventures.com. And my LinkedIn link is there. Facebook is there. Instagram is there. And I cut it off. That's all. I don't do TikTok. I don't do Snapchat. I'm like, come on, I'm a baby boomer. And to gotten this far with technology, my son, teases me all the time. He's a computer engineer. We're a big company, and he's always teasing me, right? But no. So if you go to our website, everything's there. You can find everything there. And if you want to join our Facebook page, we'd love to have you. YouTube channels there. Again, LinkedIn's on there, and Instagram as well.
Well, Dave, thank you so much, and blessings on what you do. And may your
Thanks, Keith.
goal of saving as many lives as possible materialize, because what you're doing is phenomenal to get people to understand that they have a God-given sense of purpose and a God-given reason for being here, and no one is here by accident. God created them, designed them, and has crafted them to do something amazing for him. So thank you for what you do for the kingdom.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks for having me on your show. Let's do it again sometime.
Will do.
Thanks for listening to Becoming Bridge Builder. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help support the podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at @bkeithhaney and on Getter and Twitter @RevHeadpin or on his website at alightbreaksthrough.org. Thanks again, and tune in next time.
Do you know that most entrepreneurs hit a revenue ceiling and have no idea why? They're working harder, spending more money, running more ads, but revenue stays flat. My friend Dr. Noah St. John calls this the invisible break. He's giving our listeners a free revenue ceiling audit to help you see what's really holding you back. You'll get a free 30-day membership to NoahBot, giving you access to Dr. Noah's 30 years of experience to help you reach your next level. But hurry, because there's only 50 available this month. So if you're tired of being stuck at the same revenue level and want to finally break through, get your free revenue ceiling audit at drnoahvault.com in the affiliate link that'll be listed in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to Becoming Bridge Builder. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help support the podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at @bkeithhaney and on Getter and Twitter @RevHeadpin. Thanks again, and tune in next time.